From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
My name is Ravi Ragbiran. Today I am going into Immigration and Customs Enforcement to meet a deportation officer. I'm going with all my friends and my family because we don't know what's going to happen when I go inside. There are possibilities they could tell me to come back, but the most scary and terrifying aspect is where they tell me to come into the offices and my family won't see me again.
In a Democracy Now! Exclusive, one of New York's best-known immigrant rights advocates joins us on what might be his last day as a free man in the United States. We'll speak with Ravi Ragbir just before he heads for a check-in with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. He fears he'll be detained and deported, even though he's married to a U.S. citizen and has a U.S.-born daughter. Then to a day without a woman.
Today is for the indigenous women. Today is for the black women. Today is for the Asian women and the Latina women.
In a day of global protest, International Women's Day was marked across the world Wednesday. Here in the United States, organizers called on women to go on strike for a day. We'll air highlights from the protests in New York and Washington. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Across the world, women and their allies rallied Wednesday to mark International Women's Day. In the United States, organizers declared a day without a woman, calling for a one-day strike and for boycott of stores. In Prince George's County, Maryland, the entire school district closed down after 1,700 teachers asked for the day off. In New York City, thousands rallied outside Trump International Hotel and Tower. Speakers included Linda Sarsour, a lead organizer of the historic January 21st Women's March on Washington.
So I want you to understand that your statement that you're making today is part of a long history of women who have led us in social justice movements. What makes it different now? Now we have an open, sexist, misogynist, anti-women president.
Linda Sarsour was one of 13 activists later arrested for acts of civil disobedience outside Trump Tower. There were events marking International Women's Day worldwide. In Bangladesh, garment workers rallied for higher wages and an end to sometimes deadly working conditions. In Nigeria, women rallied against sexual abuse and kidnappings. In Argentina, thousands rallied in the capital, Buenos Aires. This is activist Mariana Carabal.
Today, we women say enough. It is a day when we are saying we are fed up with femicides, which are the most extreme expression of macho violence. And we are also saying we have had enough of historical inequalities that push us to be second-class citizens.
We'll have more on nationwide actions on International Women's Day, including voices from the streets of a major march in New York after headlines. In healthcare news, House Republicans advanced a measure this morning to abolish the tax penalty imposed on Americans who don't purchase health insurance. The move by the House Ways and Means Committee followed a marathon 18-hour debate. On Wednesday, a broad coalition of nurses, doctors, and hospitals rejected the Republican bill, saying in a letter to Congress the legislation would add to the ranks of the uninsured. The mounting opposition came as Republican House Speaker Paul Ryan vowed passage, calling the repeal of Obamacare an act of mercy. That statement drew a sharp response Wednesday from Massachusetts Democratic Congressman Joe Kennedy III.
There is no mercy in a system that makes health care a luxury. There's no mercy in a country that turns their back on those most in need of protection, the elderly, the poor, the sick, and the suffering. There's no mercy in a cold shoulder to the mentally ill. There's no mercy in a policy that takes for granted the sweat, the tears, and the sacrifice of working Americans that they shed every day so that they might care for their family's basic needs, food, shelter, health, and hope for tomorrow. There's no mercy for the 2.6 million people who will lose their job if Obamacare is repealed. This is not an act of mercy.
Chair now recognizes the gentlelady from...
The legislation also faces opposition from some conservative Republicans who blasted it as Obamacare light. Republican Senator Ted Cruz predicted Wednesday the bill lacked the support needed to pass the Senate. Politico is reporting Donald Trump's presidential campaign sent a former foreign policy advisor to Russia on the condition that he would not be an official representative for Trump. The trip by Carter Page last July came just days before WikiLeaks began publishing thousands of emails taken from the servers of the Democratic National Committee, a theft Democrats and many intelligence officials allege was carried out by Russia. Meanwhile, the White House blasted newly resurfaced reports that Donald Trump personally met Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak last April as disingenuous and absurd. The Wall Street Journal report from April 26 noted Trump met the ambassador at a VIP reception ahead of a major foreign policy speech by Trump. A photograph by Getty Images shows the ambassador approaching his seat near the front of the invitation-only reception. The resurfaced report contradicts Trump's claim at a news conference last month he hasn't spoken to anyone from Russia other than a pair of post-election calls from President Vladimir Putin. In Washington, D.C., the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee said Wednesday he wants to interview the former British spy who authored a dossier alleging damning ties between Donald Trump and Russia's government. California Congressman Adam Schiff says he'll seek testimony from Christopher Steele, whose 35-page memo alleges the compromising information could be used by Russia to blackmail the president. Most of Steele's claims have not been verified. Steele reemerged from hiding earlier this week after his disappearance in January following reports about the dossier. Congressman Schiff also said this week his committee would accept Donald Trump's call for a congressional investigation into the president's unsubstantiated claims that President Obama wiretapped Trump Tower ahead of November's election.
We accept. We will investigate this. The president has said that this is a scandal that dwarfs Watergate, that his predecessor engaged in an illegal wiretap of his campaign. That is one potential scandal. The alternative is a different kind of a scandal, and that is a scandal of a sitting U.S. president alleging that his predecessor engaged in the most unscrupulous and unlawful conduct. That is also a scandal if those allegations prove to be false.
The White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer gave conflicting responses Wednesday to questions about whether Donald Trump might have been wiretapped because he was under investigation. This was Spicer's initial response.
Sean, is the president the target of a counterintelligence investigation?
I think that's what we need to find out.
But later in Wednesday's news conference, an aide passed Sean Spicer a note that prompted this statement from the press secretary.
There is no reason that we have to think that the president is the target of any investigation whatsoever.
The White House signaled Wednesday that former Utah Republican Governor Jon Huntsman has accepted President Trump's nomination to serve as U.S. ambassador to Russia. Huntsman's a former Mormon missionary to Taiwan who served as President Obama's ambassador to China before he left that post to run unsuccessfully for the Republican presidential nomination in 2012. President Trump's newly revised ban on refugees and travelers from 6 majority Muslim countries is facing its first legal challenge. A federal judge in Hawaii will hear a case brought by the state's attorney general. It charges Trump's travel ban violates religious freedoms protected by the Hawaiian and U.S. constitutions. The suit also claims the ban would hurt Hawaii's economy and that it would tear apart families. The ban is set to go into effect on March 16th. It prohibits travel for 90 days for residents of Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen. It also bans all refugees from resettling in the United States for at least 4 months. Meanwhile, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees is warning President Trump's travel ban will compound the misery of migrants fleeing war, poverty, and persecution. This is UN spokesperson Farhan Haq.
UNHCR has underscored that refugees are ordinary people forced to flee war, violence, and persecution in their home countries and are in urgent need of life-saving assistance and protection. Commenting on the executive order, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, said that the imperative remains to provide protection for people fleeing to deadly violence, and we are concerned that this decision, though temporary, may compound the anguish for those it affects.
In Syria, the Trump administration has deployed several hundred U.S. Marines armed with heavy artillery in advance of a planned fight against ISIS in the city of Raqqa. The Pentagon said a further 1,000 troops were deploying to Kuwait and could be brought into the battle if needed. The buildup came as the group Save the Children reported Syria's nearly 6-year-old civil war has exposed children to toxic stress that's leading to self-harm, aggression, and suicide. Researchers found that 2/3 of Syria's children have lost a family member, had their houses bombed, or suffered injuries from fighting. More than 70% of those surveyed said Syrian children suffer from bedwetting and involuntary urination, symptoms of toxic stress, and post-traumatic stress disorder. In Somalia, the United Nations is warning a worsening drought risks plunging millions of Somalis into famine. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres made the warning during a visit to Mogadishu.
We have 6.2 million people in need of humanitarian assistance in Somalia. That's almost half of the Somali population. We have 333,000 children that are acutely malnourished and risk to go up to 1 million if there is not enough support to avoid it.
Guterres is appealing for more than $800 million in emergency aid for Somalia. Israel's parliament Wednesday advanced legislation that would silence the Muslim call to prayer over loudspeakers in residential areas and prohibit early morning calls across Israel and occupied East Jerusalem. Right-wing Israeli lawmakers claim the call to prayer is noise pollution. Many Arab lawmakers tore up copies of the bill and were ejected from the floor of the parliament. This is Israeli parliamentarian Ahmed Tibi.
Here in this house, we never interfered with any religious ceremony relating to you, to Judaism. Your act is a racist hazard. You interfere with the most sensitive issue for Muslims and hurt the religion of Islam.
In Guatemala, at least 21 people are dead after a fire ripped through a government-run shelter for abused teenagers. At least 40 other girls suffered burns in Wednesday's blaze, which began when residents set mattresses on fire to protest overcrowding and dismal conditions at the facility, which held over 500 teens in a center designed to house 400. In Brazil, police have released a harrowing video showing 6 men assaulting a transgender woman who was found murdered last month as police attempt to track down her killer. The cell phone footage shows the men shouting homophobic slurs as they kick and beat 42-year-old Dandra dos Santos before throwing her into a wheelbarrow and carting her onto the side street where she was found shot to death. Dos Santos was one of at least 5 transgender Brazilians murdered last month. Worldwide crime statistics show that on average, 1 transgender person is murdered every 3 days. And in North Carolina, a district attorney will not bring criminal charges against a Wake County police officer who was caught on video picking up a high school student and slamming her onto a concrete floor. 15-year-old Jasmine Darwin, who's African-American, suffered a head injury after the assault by school resources officer Ruben de los Santos. The officer announced last week he's resigning from the police force. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We begin today's show with a Democracy Now! Exclusive. One of New York's best-known immigrants' rights advocates joins us on what might be his last day as a free man in the United States. Ravi Ragbir is executive director of the New Sanctuary Coalition of New York City. This morning, right after our broadcast, Ravi heads for a check-in with Immigration and Customs Enforcement here in New York City. He plans to go to the meeting, even though he may not be released. The usually predictable process of checking in with Immigration and Customs Enforcement as part of a regular supervision process has become a source of anxiety for many immigrants since President Trump ordered changes to enforcement in January. In just one example, last week in Phoenix, Arizona, a single father of 3 U.S.-born children had plans to celebrate his son's 17th birthday after a check-in meeting that he thought was to discuss his request for asylum. An hour later, Juan Carlos Fomparosa Garcia's daughter says officials, quote, brought me a bag with the stuff, and that was it. Her father was deported the next day. Meanwhile, other immigrants have gone to their check-ins and were released as expected. No matter what happens this morning at Ravi Ragbir's check-in, he will not go alone. As part of his work, he's conducted trainings on how to accompany people to their check-ins in order to show support and document what unfolds. He himself will be joined by faith leaders and elected officials, including several city council members and New York State Senator Gustavo Rivera. Just last month, Ravi was recognized in Albany, the New York State capital, with the Immigrant Excellence Award by the New York State Association of Black and Puerto Rican Legislators, given to those who show, quote, deep commitment to the enhancement of their community, unquote. The Independent newspaper recently featured him in a cover story called Walk With Me by Democracy Now's Renee Feltz, and a Canadian Broadcasting Corporation film crew is following him today. Ravi legally immigrated to the United States from Trinidad and Tobago more than 25 years ago, but a 2001 wire fraud conviction made his green card subject to review. Even though he's married to a U.S. citizen and has a U.S.-born daughter, the government refuses to normalize his status. Instead, Immigration and Customs Enforcement has exercised prosecutorial discretion to grant him a stay of deportation. His current stay lasts until 2018. But his 15-year-old criminal record makes him an easy target for removal. Last night, his supporters and legal team met for one last time before this morning's check-in. This is Raya Trivedi, a third-year law student at NYU School of Law, who's helping represent Ravi through the school's Immigrant Rights Clinic.
You can see that for many, many years, the ICE office has recognized the outstanding contribution that he has made to the community as a leader, as someone in the faith community and the immigrant rights community, as a very important person to a lot of people. And they have recognized that, and we expect that they will continue to do that. So we prepare for the worst, we expect the best.
That's Raya Trivedi. Well, this morning, Ravi Ragbir joins us in our studio before he heads to check-in. Also joining us, his wife, Amy Gottlieb, a longtime immigrant rights lawyer with the American Friends Service Committee. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! I know this is a really tough time for you right now. Ravi, talk about what you will do after you leave Democracy Now!
Well, I will just head to the subways. Basically,
You'll head to the subway.
I'm going to the subways.
You're going underground.
I am going underground. That's absolutely true. But normally, or some people would say, why don't I go underground? But that's not an option here, and I am not going to do that. I am going to Immigration and Customs Enforcement offices at 26 Federal Plaza, and I'm going to basically turn myself in and hope and expect that they will allow me to come back out. There's a stay, you mentioned the stay of removal that expires in 2018. That would be a normal expectation that they would release me because they gave me this stay. But as you said, there are many instances that people have not have been taken away and end up deported. When
you say you're going to turn yourself in, what you're doing is you're going for a check-in, which can be very routine in the United States for immigrants.
Absolutely. So it is a routine check-in. It's like a parole, right, for analogy. And you just go in and meet your deportation officer, and he would make sure all information is correct, and normally we would walk out. But not in this instance, and that's what is going to happen. And that's why, you mentioned the accompaniment. When we partner U.S. citizens with immigrants who are in this crisis, not only for myself, but many others, they are able to get the support from the community, and so they are not in this fearful space, but also getting the officers to treat that person with respect.
I mean, this is actually amazing because you really pioneered this accompaniment program for check-ins, which most people don't really think about, where people accompany an immigrant to check-in.
So people have been accompanied before, but we have had a training to have them understand what they need to do, their response in different scenarios, and not only to their check-ins, but to the court. So a lot of times the lawyers will say they don't need any family or friends. I'm the lawyer, I will get you out. But in actual fact, when the community is there, the minister, especially the minister and the congregation, it makes a difference when in that judge's eyes that there is such a large support and such a large community here that it makes a difference. And we have gotten people freed. We have gotten people, the judge has all said, okay, you have won your case because of the large community support. So yes, it is something that is unique to the Union Sanctuary where the training is very, very important for the immigrant as much as the volunteers.
But here there is no judge. You will meet with an ICE officer.
I will meet with a deportation officer. A
deportation. And do you know that person? You've been doing this for years.
I've been doing this for years, and it changes every time. Maybe one time we've had the same deportation officer, but we never know who is going to be the officer on file, and I never know who I'm going to be meeting today. So sometimes the officers are friendly, sometimes they're not. And that uncertainty of who we're going to meet. You know, before, when I had a 2-year stay in 2014, the officer said, okay, we'll see you in 2 years. In 2016, when I went back to renew it, we got it, the officer said, I'll see you in 1 year. There was no rhyme and reason why I had to go back in today. But, you know, as my wife will say, it's probably the best thing that we had to come in so I would not be looking over my shoulder every day.
So, Amy, you're Ravi's wife. You also happen to be an immigrants' rights attorney. How long have the two of you been married?
We've been married about 6.5 years. We got married in September of 2010.
And Ravi, how long have you been in the United States?
I've been in the United States since 1990, just over 25 years.
For a quarter of a century. Yeah. So, Amy, how are you doing today?
I'm okay. You know, we have been through this before. It does feel different. What feels good is the outpouring of community support that we have right now, knowing that we honestly have the best legal team on earth, the best organizing team on earth. We have a committee, a defense committee, that is helping us kind of strategize about what to do if he gets taken in, how to celebrate if he doesn't get taken in. So we've been taking it one day at a time, feeling, of course, anxious, not sleeping so well, but at the same time holding out hope that ICE will, you know, continue the existing stay and that we have more time to continue real legal options to help Ravi get full legal status here.
So you go in together to, it's almost like a DMV-like room, right? Department of Motor Vehicles, you got Fox News on the television, and then your number is called?
Well, not a number, but we will turn in the paperwork, the supervision paperwork, to the window, like a DMV window, and they would they will leave it for the deportation officer to pick up, and then the officer will come out and either call me to the door and say, okay, come back in 6 months or a year. But in another scenario, he will call me in to say, I need to talk to you, and you will not see me again.
And Amy, can you be with him through this time?
It depends. I mean, I can be with him waiting, and it depends if they bring him back or not. In previous years, they have allowed me back if they call him in to, like, have a quick conversation, but you just can't predict, right? You just don't know how they're going to act.
So you could be taken, and you just never see Ravi here in this country again.
It's possible. We have heard of times where a person we knew a couple of years ago got taken in, and he was accompanied by people we knew, and they allowed them back there to say goodbye. So it's possible that they would do something like that. But as I said, you know, it depends on the officer. It depends on a lot of different scenarios.
And that was the accompaniment program, right? The volunteers from the accompaniment was allowed to speak, to be there. But it's a different era now, different atmosphere. So what we would have expected, we cannot expect anymore. So it's totally unknown.
So if President Obama were still in office, under him, they had granted you a 2-year stay. So although they said you had to come back this year, you would have another year until hoping to get another stay as you work out your green card and your residency status.
That's right. We would have expected to go in. It would be a routine check-in, and they'll say, "Well, you have to stay. We will see you back in another year." But even if there was another administration, we would have expected something similar.
So let me turn to President Trump speaking just last month.
I said we will get the criminals out, the drug lords, the gang members. We're getting them out. General Kelly, who's sitting right here, is doing a fantastic job. And I said at the beginning, we are going to get the bad ones, the really bad ones. We're getting them out, and that's exactly what we're doing. I think that in the end, everyone's going to be extremely happy.
We're going to get the really bad ones out, Amy.
You know, for so many years working on these issues, we have been really struggling to eliminate this idea that there's a good immigrant and a bad immigrant, right? That we have people who come to our country who are people who have lives that, you know, sometimes there's a criminal conviction, there's a bad act, but we want folks to be able to look at the whole person. And when you hear that kind of language about, you know, getting the bad people out, it stirs up something inside of me that, you know, that's not Ravi, right? Like, we're not talking about bad people here. We're talking about the people who are part of our communities. That's just rhetoric that, you know, kind of pits people against each other.
Ravi, you had a criminal conviction how many years ago?
I was convicted in 2000.
For a wire fraud
conviction. For wire fraud, working as a salesman for a mortgage lender.
And how long did you serve in jail?
I was sentenced for 2.5 years. I was under house arrest before I served the 2.5 years for 3 years before that. So 3 years I was under house arrest, and then I went into prison for 2.5 years, and then I ended up in detention for 2 years.
So then they wanted to deport you right after that, but you fought that and won.
I fought that, and we have been fighting that since then. So it has been, this is where the legal team, Rhea and my legal team, my attorney Alina Das, have been saying that this process, this process, and I use air quotes, right, because the process itself was completely wrong, and they can point to many errors in the process itself.
I want to turn to a different case, to Rose Escobar, speaking last month in Houston, Texas, after her husband, Jose, the father of their 2 children, was detained when he showed up for his annual check-in and almost immediately deported.
My husband is not a criminal. My husband is a good man who works hard and provides for me and my children. My husband already makes America great. You take him away from me, you have me going to welfare, food stamps. That's not the life that I want. I'm not saying it's a bad life, but that's not the life I had, and it's not the life that I want.
Amy, that's the wife of Jose. You're the wife of Ravi. Your feelings right now as you head down to Federal Plaza. The 2 of you, as soon as you arrive, will be holding a news conference. Is that right? Hundreds of people are expected. I went down to the offices at the Judson Church last night. There were scores of people there saying goodbye to you, Ravi, being there to support you, making a whole big dinner, making signs. And in these last weeks, you haven't stopped talking to people, advising them about what to do in their cases, taking phone calls, learning about ICE raids throughout New York.
In actual fact, last week, I went to Union City. The mayor of Union City had worked with us
in New Jersey.
And he issued a municipal ID 6 weeks after we talked to him. And he called for a town hall. And he expected 50 people. 1,600 people showed up in a church that was only supposed to hold 500. And that was what the people who were allowed inside. There were hundreds outside. People are afraid. They need to have this information. And yes, you're right. I have not stopped speaking. I have not stopped doing presentations, because it is a number, the immigrants themselves, the people who want to support them, the churches who need to be ready to have to create this safe space. We need to coordinate that. Now, what you saw yesterday wasn't last night wasn't a goodbye, but an empowerment dinner, because that's what we do. We empower people through this process. They're afraid. Most of them who you met there, the parents are undocumented themselves, but because we have been able to teach them how to deal with this trauma, this process, they are strong and they're energized and they're motivated to speak up and also to move forward. So they will be down here today.
What is a Jericho walk?
Jericho walk, it is biblical. It's in the story in the Bible where they couldn't defeat this city. And God told them, well, you cannot defeat the city by army, but you follow my instructions and you will win. So they were told to walk around 7 times around the city. And after 7 times, the walls came tumbling down. There's a song about that. But similarly, we have been doing the Jericho walk since 2011, which started as a result of, in response to SB 1070, the Arizona law. We walk around Federal Plaza 7 times in silence.
This is around Federal Plaza, 26 Federal Plaza area? It
is around 26 Federal Plaza, and we have done it around 26 Federal Plaza. We've also done it around the Supreme Court. 500 people have walked around the Supreme Court. We have walked around Congress. We have walked around the Senate building in silence. And, you know, when the guards or the officers see us, they don't know what to take up, how to think about us, because we're not saying a word, but you know we're there for a purpose. Similarly, the Jericho walk today is going to be doing that.
If you are taken, where would you be taken to? Where are immigrants taken in New York City when they are detained?
It could be a number of places. They could be taken to New Jersey, Hudson County Correctional Center, the Bergen County Jail, or I could be taken to Orange County up in Genosa, right, upstate New York. So any one of them, I will be held and detained until they find they can put me on a plane and take me to Trinidad.
Now, Amy, you are an immigrants' rights lawyer. For a long time, you ran the Newark office of AFSC. Yeah. That's New Jersey. Right. These detention centers mainly are for-profit detention centers. The Elizabeth Detention Center, I think, is run by CCA, right, the Corrections Corporation of America. These for-profit jails are enjoying massive profits since President Trump was elected.
That's right. In New Jersey, there's actually only one that's private. That's the Elizabeth Detention Center, as you say. There's also these county jails that contract with Immigration and Customs Enforcement and make tons and tons and tons of money for the counties themselves. So they celebrate when they get these contracts because they're paid approximately, you know, $120, $130 per day per detainee. So they, Hudson County, for example, has over, I think, 900 beds. Essex County Jail is over 800 beds. So we've got people detained everywhere. Profits are soaring. Prior to President Trump, President Obama's administration had actually said they were going to stop using private prisons in the federal prison system. We were pushing to have that happen in the immigration detention system. We got close to that. And then Attorney General Sessions came in and completely retracted that. So we're back into private prisons and all the private companies that contract with public prisons that are making money on this.
So you know how much it costs to feed it? When I was locked in detention, you know how much it cost to feed me for one day? 75 cents. They were spending to feed one immigrant 75 cents. And you know how we knew that? Because they felt they were spending too much, and they wanted to bring that cost down to 45 cents. So the numbers were thrown out, and we were hearing and seeing this happening. So the profits, the cost is low, but the profits are high because they're being paid $120, right?
So have you packed? People often don't know that they're going to be taken, but you confront this epic moment right now after being in this country for 27 years. How did you prepare for this morning?
I did not pack. My wife has been telling me to clean up, but I haven't done that. I've ignored that. Basically, how I prepared is throwing myself in my work. I've been doing presentations 2 and 3 times a day, sometimes speaking for 4 hours straight to congregations or churches. So that's how I've dealt with this. Last night you asked me how I felt. Well, I told you I had no feelings because if I was going to feel something, I was going to feel terror. I was going to feel anxiety. And to feel that and be able to work, be able to function was impossible. And I couldn't allow myself to curl up in a corner and die, which is where they want us to be. I had to continue doing the work and continue to share the experience so that as a privileged person that I am, meaning that I can go back to Trinidad without feeling the fear that I could be targeted, as other countries and other immigrants face. I also am able to speak, and I also have community support. So I'm privileged, and I use this opportunity to highlight that situation.
Who will be speaking today at the news conference, just as this show ends, that you'll be holding it right outside 26 Federal Plaza?
We have been told that apart from the faith communities, that Reverend Donna Scarper will be speaking, but we have had the elected
Reverend Donna Scarper is the Reverend of the Judson Church, where the New Sanctuary Coalition has its offices.
That's right, and she was one of the co-founders of the New Sanctuary Coalition of New York, but also of the National Sanctuary in 2007. But apart from that, they have a lot of elected officials who are coming to support me, to walk in with me. So Senator Gustavo Rivera will be there. You have Councilman Drum, Councilman Williams, Jumani Williams, Councilman Rodriguez. The Speaker just confirmed, Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito just confirmed she will be there.
The Speaker of the New York City Council, Melissa Mark-Viverito, will be also speaking and accompanying you.
Yes, we don't know if she'll accompany us, but she's speaking at the press conference. The controller is planning to be there. We have had 2 State Assembly people who also wants to speak. The Squadron and
Joanne Simon.
Joanne Simon,
our Assemblywoman.
The Assemblywoman in the state
district.
legislature.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And then you will together walk into the ICE office.
Together we will go through security. They make you take your shoes off, right, to get into that building. Take your belts off and ask you for ID. And a lot of people who are going into that space that don't have ID, so they intimidate you from the beginning. And when you go upstairs, you are having to hand in this paperwork and sit down there in complete terror, because every minute that goes past, you are thinking that this is the day. And you're sitting next to people who are facing that same trauma. And they themselves, you feed off that fear, and you sit down and you see the child and the wife who may have accompanied them, and the tears and the heartbreak that is happening because they have been ripped apart. So it is hard for me as a person to see that, although I'm going through it myself. But this is why we have had the accompaniment training. So we want people to see that so they can take it back out and force and push for true reform where people can live in dignity without that fear.
Do you see yourself as a role model?
I do not want to think of myself as a role model, because then it clouds where I need to be. I need to be always aware that even though I may have support, I have to think about those who do not have support. So I always have to be ready to think about the consequences of a policy change on someone who do not have that support. But what you saw yesterday is those immigrants who says I've been a role model for them, so that they are now speaking up, and they are now empowered to go out and speak to the elected officials and go out and advocate for themselves. And go out, even though something may go wrong, they know that as they go through this process, it will be good for them, because they are ready for every step of the way. So I do not want to be a role model, but I have been told I am.
Do you have a message for President Trump?
I will let my wife answer that.
If only. I would desperately love for us to have a president who saw the humanity in every single individual and understood that every person should be treated with dignity and respect. That's my message. And that all of our policies should reflect that.
Not only for immigrants. We're talking about he's been, using other rhetorics that is targeting and causing. As a result, there's a lot of hate that is on the streets. We need to look at everyone as being part of a society that wants to grow together and work together. So everyone needs to be able to build that relationship together.
I wanted to end back in your basement where you were last night, the basement of the Judson Church in New York City, to go to Judith Paez, who was speaking during what could be your last meeting at the New Sanctuary Coalition. People were making banners for today's Jericho walk outside 26 Federal Plaza. This is Judith.
We started making these banners yesterday, and we had the idea a few weeks ago about doing all this kind of art to represent what we are here in this sanctuary. We are fighting for our rights, but not just a fight. It's not just a fight. It's something to show support, to show unity, to show strength in our communities that have been suffering for all these new government, the policies that are separating families, are breaking apart many families in this city and many other places around the USA.
That was Judy Paez in the basement of the Judson Church. As we wrap up, this is right when kids are going to school. But a lot of kids are afraid. Their parents don't want to send them to school. Afraid, like we just played the video that has gone viral, of the dad taking his 13-year-old to school, and he's arrested, and she is weeping as she's filming this on her phone. What do you say to these families? Are you finding that families are taking their kids out of school?
We are finding that they are taking their kids out of school. But the kids that are going to school, they've had many teachers and principals call and say, can you come and do a Beyond the Rights training? So,
What do you mean by beyond your rights?
Well, the rights, the know your rights that we used to say before, basically stops at if they knock on the door, don't open the door. But if we expect this administration, if we don't know what rights could be violated, and we have to have everyone prepare for that. So during this process, if they get captured, what do they need to do? They don't have to sign any stipulated waivers, so that they have to go through the court system. Sharing with people that they will not get deported immediately. There's a process, and that process could take months and even years. When I was in detention, I met someone who was there for 7 years in detention. He still got deported, but he was fighting throughout that 7 years, hoping that he could stay here. And we will speak to the parents about this process, so they're not afraid. As I was saying, the principals were called because those children are crying. They don't stop crying because they don't know if their parents will be home when they leave school. And how does that environment facilitate learning? You would think that only applies to the young children, the 10 and under, but the elderly, the older children are feeling this also, and everyone wants to needs this help and needs to know the Beyond the Rights, so that they know how not to get caught and how to navigate the process every step of the way.
Well, all the best to you both. We will continue to follow what happens to you, and people can go to DemocracyNow.org as we go down to 26 Federal Plaza, where you'll hold your news conference, and then you'll make your way up into the ICE facility, and we'll see what happens next. We hope to see you again, interviewing you as you come out and say how you felt coming out again as a free man.
I hope so. I hope to be back here talking to you.
Thank you so much, Ravi Ragbir and Amy Gottlieb. Ravi, well-known immigrants' rights advocate, executive director and founder of the New Sanctuary Coalition of New York City. He faces deportation when he goes to his ICE check-in this morning after our broadcast. But first, there'll be a news conference, and we will be covering that at 9 o'clock at Federal Plaza, right outside 26 Federal Plaza.
At Foley Square.
At Foley,
yes.
Right at Foley Square.
Yes.
I know hundreds of people are planning to go. This is Democracy Now! When we come back, immigrants' rights, the Muslim ban, reproductive rights, all of these issues were raised yesterday, not only in the United States, but around the world. In the United States, it was called A Day Without a Woman. Stay with us.
No preciso ni decir todo esto que te digo, pero es bueno así sentir que eres tú mi gran amigo. No preciso ni decir todo esto que te digo, pero es bueno así sentir que yo tengo un gran amigo. No preciso ni decir todo esto que te digo, pero es bueno así sentir que eres tú mi gran amigo. La 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 la
That was music recorded last night at Judson Memorial Church in New York City at a gathering for Ravi Ragbir ahead of his check-in with ICE today. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Women rallied around the world Wednesday to mark International Women's Day. Here in the United States, it was dubbed A Day Without a Woman, as organizers called on women to go on strike. In Prince George's County, Maryland, the entire school district closed down after 1,700 teachers asked for the day off. In Virginia, the entire public school system of Alexandria also closed after 300 workers requested the day off. Officials in Alexandria said the school closing was unprecedented.
For us, this is unprecedented. We've never had a case like this where we've had so many teachers call out all together on one day.
Some schools also closed in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and right here in New York City. Also here, thousands rallied outside Trump International Hotel. Speakers included Linda Sarsour, a lead organizer of the historic January 21st Women's March on Washington.
So I want you to understand that your statement that you're making today is part of a long history of women who have led us in social justice movements. What makes it different now? Now we have an open, sexist, misogynist, anti-women president.
Linda Sarsour was one of 13 activists later arrested for acts of civil disobedience outside Trump Tower. She was arrested along with 3 other Women's March organizers, Tamika Mallory, Carmen Perez, and Bob Bland. Meanwhile, thousands of people took part in a rally at New York City's Washington Square Park. We turn now to voices from the rally. This is the Black Lives Matter poet, Jamara Michelle Wakefield.
Today is for the indigenous women. Today is for the black women. Today is for the Asian women and the Latina women. Today is for the Palestinian women and the Iranian women. Today is for the descendants of slaves. Today is for the colonized women. Today is for the lesbian women. Today is for the queer women. Today is for the bi women. Today is for the women who don't give a fudge about gender conformity. Today is for the trans women, for the poor women, for the fat women. Today is for the immigrants and the refugees and the migrant women. Today is for the girls who will become women, the victims of human trafficking women, the women who believe in gods that you do not know women. Today is for the developmentally delayed and the mentally ill women. Today is for the incarcerated women and their families.
Next
wonderful people from the New York State Nurses Association, a union of 40,000 members. Please welcome Judy Shaidan Gonzalez.
Do you feel the fire? So in 1911, flames engulfed the Triangle Factory, resulting in the deaths of 446 workers, mostly women. Women exploited and murdered by their employers in their unrelenting search for profits. How many bodies does it take for laws to be enacted and for those of us who bear witness and to atrocities to build the movement for social justice? How about now? We need to transform those fires that take lives, to find the fire within us, to transform our society, to ignite a fire around us, to wake up folks to the fact that change only happens when we make it happen.
My name is Constance Malcolm. First, I want to say I'm also an immigrant. I'm from Jamaica. And I'm also a union member. I'm 1199. Some of you might know my case. Some of you it might be new to. It's been 5 years since I've been fighting for accountability. Officer Richard Hayes broke into my house and murdered my son in front of my 6-year-old child and his grandmother. You know, this system is so corrupt. The officer was actually charged with manslaughter 1 and 2. We was going to court for a whole year, and then the judge decided to throw out the case on a technicality.
My name is Hawa Ba. I'm the mother of Mohammed Ba. Mohammed Ba was my son. It's clearly evident that the NYPD unjustly killed my son in his own home. Mohammed Ba was a Muslim man, immigrant. He loved to practice his prayer. He never committed a crime in his life. The NYPD took her life on September 25, 2012. They never hold no one accountable.
Betty Lyons, the president of the American Indian Law Alliance and an indigenous and environmental activist. Please welcome.
Welcome to Haudenosaunee territory. I'm a proud citizen of the Onondaga Nation, and I wanted to say, I don't know if many of you know, that the women's rights movement started with Haudenosaunee women, and it makes me so proud to say that. We've been invisible for far too long, and we're going to be invisible no more. What's happening today against Mother Earth is in direct reflection of what's happening in our society. As we see the pipelines going forward, right? This leads to more sexual violence against our women as these transient companies come in to our territories and abuse our women. So I'm asking all of you to stand united. This doesn't just affect me, it affects all of our 7 generations yet unborn that are looking up to us from under the earth and watching every decision that we make. Our girls are watching us. We need to stand up for the rights of Mother Earth.
Betty Lyons, president of the American Indian Law Alliance, speaking at a Day Without a Woman rally in New York. When we come back, we hear voices from the streets. Stay with us.
I've been a lonely girl, but I'm ready for the world. Oh, I'm ready for the world. I've been a heart for hire. I've been a heart for hire. And my love's on the funeral pyre. Oh, my love's on the funeral pyre. When will
That's Hungry Ghosts by Linda Segura of Hooray for the Riff Raff, performing in our Democracy Now! Studio one of her songs on her latest album, The Navigator, released this week. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman as we continue our coverage from International Women's Day protests here in the United States, dubbed A Day Without a Woman. Democracy Now!'s Dina Guzder spoke to women in Washington Square Park.
My name's Jess Lehman, and we came out actually with my colleagues from our office. We collectively have had the opportunity to strike together. I think something that felt important to me was actually standing in solidarity with the women who do work that means that the fabric of society stays together. And I think they mentioned it here before, but all the unpaid work that goes into contributing to wealth for this society and all societies across the world.
This International Women's Day is the first one after Donald Trump's inauguration. What are your thoughts about his presidency so far as a woman?
I feel like the first thought was of being terrified and angry, really angry that women are still having to fight for fundamental rights to own their own body, and that any one other person should claim that they have ownership over that or have the right to determine what's right for you, because we are self-actualized beings, right? We're also humans, so we should have the chance to be treated as such. I think then it's turned into a kind of desire to be active and to channel those feelings and thoughts into something that's productive, and also to be very sensitive. You know, I know that I have certain privileges, and that's not the same for everyone.
My name is Imania Hia, and I am a pharmacy student from LIU, Long Island University in Brooklyn. Well, obviously I'm a woman, and particularly I'm a Muslim woman, and I'm very proud of that, and I'm here to support all women. As a Muslim New Yorker and soon-to-be working women, I feel like we're underprivileged in a lot of areas in society, and we're not appreciated enough.
And we're speaking just days after Donald Trump announced his second version of his travel ban, what many are calling a Muslim travel ban. Your response to this new travel ban?
Just like it came down the first time, it'll come down the second time. That's what I have to say about it. I mean, people are resisting. We're going to continue resisting. Resisting works, so that's what we're going to do.
My name is Miriam Brody, and this is Isaac Kramnick, and we are here to support the various coalitions that have come together to celebrate International Women's Day in this manifestation of, we hope, our strength going forward to resist the movement afoot, alas, in the United States, which will affect us and the world. We're all aware of the great threats on so many levels to our freedoms, to the climate, to our health care, and we think it's imperative to stand up and be counted, and it's not a moment to sit back.
My name is Jimena Malaga Sabogal. I'm from Peru, and my sign says "Vivas nos queremos, ni una menos." This was the slogan of a big campaign that started last year in Latin America because of hola, how do you say hola? Because of a wave of feminicides and crimes against women that were sadly pretty much availed by the states that didn't do anything to fight them. So it's something that started in Peru, went through Argentina, Mexico, and many other Latin American countries. And we also feel that from here, women that are immigrants, that are living here in the States, sadly, we don't feel that situation changes at all. So it's just a wake-up call. No, it's ni una menos, because we don't want more victims of gender violence.
That's voices from A Day Without a Woman rally in Washington Square Park in the Village in New York City. You can go to our website at democracynow.org to hear more voices from the protest. Democracy Now! Is produced by Mike Burke, Dina Guzder, Nermeen Sheikh, Carla Wills, Laura Gottesdiener, Sam Alcoff, John Hamilton, Robbie Karen, Hani Massoud, Sharina Nadura, and Andre Lewis. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks so much for joining us.